Hello, my name is Donna, and my channel is about abuse recovery. It's about recovering from abuse, and I'm out on a run. I'm here in the woods. I found a bench I'm chilling out on to make a video. I was having some thoughts. Running will really do that for you. By the way, it's amazing for people that have CPTSD and have lived through trauma. It helps really release some of those heavy energies and, helps to re-regulate the nervous system, releases endorphins, also even DMT, which is the spiritual molecule that's created in your lungs and goes up to your brain. And but also, it's a form of meditation, the repetitive breathing pattern and, the focused thinking. So, it's a really amazing thing for people that have lived through some abuse and trauma. But so I was thinking about splitting, and I really wanted to make a video about that behavior. So in psychology, and I'm having like some realizations. I made a video before about it, about the behavior of splitting, and in psychology, they very much note and see this behavior in people in the cluster B disorders, which is, the NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, BPD, borderline personality disorder, and sociopaths and psychopaths. And what splitting is, it's where, where they will idolize you and, see you as perfect, and then, you do something very human, and they see you as inherently flawed, and they have a hard time remedying, so they see you in very black and white. You're either all good or all bad with no humanness in between. you know so you know they have a very hard time with that. So first of all, like, they'll they will idolize you in their own illusion, of idolization, because you shouldn't be idolized either, nor should you be like looked at as completely worthless. Neither should you be looked at in that way, because no one is perfect and no one is worthless. We're all somewhere in between that gray area there. And so, you know, and they'll, go back and forth between this idolization, which is also, like I said, not good. We shouldn't be idolized, and because it's also an illusion, and then they'll, you know, split you, and then see you as worthless, which you aren't either. You're definitely not worthless either. So, the thing is, splitting can happen when you do something like just extremely human, like the book, the Four Agreements about Toltec wisdom. One of the four agreements is, to always do your best, but he notes that your best changes at different moments, like day to day, hour to hour. Like, my best is going to be not as good when I've had no sleep and I've had a long day, or something trying happened that day. Then my best is going to be not as good. And so the cluster Bs have a hard time seeing this in others. It's, a hard time seeing it. And so, they'll just take when you don't do your best as you're like being mean and being cruel, and, you're messed up and awful. And until they re-regulate, BPD really, all of these disorders, including the behaviors of the CPTSD, the complex post-traumatic stress disorder, these are all really, like, even the personality, it's not who you are, you're your core. They're defense mechanisms that were set up to overcome trauma. Now, I'm not making excuses for abuse, because that's where I'm going to get into why we that aren't, in the abuse patterns of splitting someone and seeing them as awful, we also split, and we do it the opposite direction. And it's not really looked at because people see it as, loving and kind and empathetic. And it's actually splitting and minimizing. So I'll get into that. So I just want to say, like, about BPD, which I think that I may have had some traits of that as well. And along with the CPTSD, can often be comorbid. They're just different core wounds. And so and it's just different coping mechanisms to deal with a core wound. So the core wound of CPTSD is I'm not good enough. That's the wound that comes from being abused, from someone constantly gaslighting you and, putting down your reality and your thought and your view of things and just who you are, and just always like telling you basically in not so many words and sometimes in so many words, emotionally, maybe sometimes not verbally, but just like emotional manipulation to let you know that you're not good enough. You can see where that would happen with that splitting behavior, you know. And so then you're left with the imprint of not good enough. The BPD is a abandonment trauma, you know. So I hope I'm going to tie this all together right. So a lot of people look at attachment trauma or attachment styles, and there's 4 different kinds. There's secure, that's where either you've overcome these patterns of behavior or you weren't raised in a traumatic dysfunctional family and you learned how to connect in a healthy manner where you can see someone as both good and bad, and you can choose what's okay for, what percentages this person is, if they're displaying mostly good or mostly bad. And it's not splitting when you do that, it's deciding what your tolerance is, like how much bullshit you're willing to take, And so there's the secure, and then there's the dismissive avoidant, which is a lot of times the NPD, the narcissistic personality disorders. I shouldn't say that it's more of the overt narcissist, because the covert narcissists are often anxiously attached. So the dismissive avoidant, that's someone that's unavailable. It's someone who claims they want a relationship. They'll love bomb you and reel you in and then spit you out because they're afraid of intimacy, because it's attachment trauma. And then there's the anxiously attached, which is usually, like the codependent type behaviors, and, where they're very needy and clingy, and it's because they're fearing abandonment. Again, it's not about the current partner, really. It's about the trauma of the attachment trauma. And, when you get into an intimate relationship, it naturally gets pinged and triggered. It lights up that pathway. So then you have the fearful avoidant, which I definitely see myself in. That's why I thought maybe I was comorbid with the CPTSD and the BPD, which, I don't know for sure, but I see myself in both of. So the fearful avoidant is a mixture of the dismissive avoidant and the the anxious avoidant, or anxiously attached, I'm sorry, dismissive, avoidant, anxiously attached. So I would often find myself, like when someone's withdrawing, I get very anxious because it triggers my attachment trauma. And then when someone gets very loving and I feel like they're like clinging to me, then I get dismissive, where it's like overwhelming, because there's fear based around that. So, okay, so now to tie in the 2 theories together, the splitting and the attachment trauma, well, I think a lot of that splitting comes from that fearful avoidant behavior. It's it's the being stuck within a few different core wounds. It's the core wound of I'm not good enough, fighting the core wound of abandonment, because you're fearing abandonment, but you're also fearing you're not good enough. So you're like clinging to prove you're good enough. And, it's, these awful cycles, these awful patterns where you have to bring your awareness in and like really say, whoa, like, am I responding to this current moment? Or is this like some leakage from the past, coming forward, and really to overcome it, you just have to keep watching your behavior and, questioning, is this like this system, family system behavior from the past that's been programmed into me, or is this really current feelings? So, okay, so the splitting, the narcissistic personality disorder, and from what I've read, often the BPD and the sociopath, definitely MPD, sociopath, and psychopath, they split in where they see you as. Ultimately, they'll remedy it with you're just worthless. That's why you'll feel very loved, and then you get like this, what do they call it? I'm going to forget the technical psychological word. Well, the devalue phase and then discarding. So they'll devalue you in very harsh and cruel ways, like not just you made a mistake, we're not compatible, this or that. It's like you are flawed. There's something wrong with you, And then they will devalue you. And then ultimately, when they split to that seeing you as worthless, they get to a point where that's just where you are for them, and they will do what's called discarding then. The thing is, the codependents, the empaths, they do this too, but they do it the opposite way. And so this is where they come in with the anxiously attached, where I'm going to love you no matter what you do to me. It's where, like, I know that there's a YouTuber that calls codependency, really call it what it is, self-love deficient. I think it's abuse blindness, It's where so the narcissistic abuser, they see us as, once there's that split, they see us as all bad. They have a hard time remedying that. They try, that's where you'll see those cycles, like where they do what's called hoovering. They'll come back because they'll start idolizing you again, and then you won't be perfect because no one is. And then they'll go back to that splitting you into the bad guy again. But like I said, so the codependence in that, they do it too, but we do it the opposite way, where we see them as all good, and we have a hard time, we dismiss abuse, and we have a hard time seeing them as bad. So they're seeing us as all good and or all bad, and we're seeing them as all good. So we're having a hard time being able to see the truth, both sides, And so, I know I was strangled. I was strangled, chased, had a big island thing thrown at me, and then called the police out of fear. And when they came to take him, I went into my idolized phase where I felt sorry for him, where, you know, I didn't feel sorry for me. I felt sorry for him. This is where we're idolizing, we're splitting in the different direction, where I'm not seeing him in his fullness, also for the bad behavior, only seeing the good. And then this comes in the form of excuses, and denial and minimization, So like, oh God, he was triggered and he's has addiction issues and he's just raging, and I can have empathy for that. And, he's feeling overwhelmed, and, you know, and all of this. And then self-blame comes in. I should have been more gentle on him. I should have kept my mouth shut. I should have walked on those proverbial eggshells. No way to live. So we split also, but we split in the different direction. We split in where we're seeing people as all good. And the thing is, people aren't all good and they aren't all bad. They're a mix. That's the human being. We're a mix of good and bad. We have flaws. We make mistakes, and we also do wonderful things and kind things too, both. So the thing is, and again, I'm not minimizing abuse, to see someone in their fullness, we don't see them as all good nor all bad, but we see them for the truth. And so when someone's acting abusive, we have to be honest that that is also part of who they are. They're an abusive person. along with a good person, and a kind person that does kind things, but also someone struggling with controlling their anger. And then we have to decide for ourselves if it's worth living in those dynamics with someone that has unhealed trauma that gets displayed and projected as anger and abuse. So we have to decide if, we care about ourselves enough to allow an existence like this. And even if it's not physical and it's just emotional abuse, you're having your nervous system hijacked and it's actually causing physical damage. Your nervous system regulates your brain and your lungs and your heart and your whole body. So it's actually causing physical damage. So we all split, except for once you get secure, secure attachment and secure self-differentiated views, knowing that you are you and you're in control of your own behaviors, and that you observe others and you see where they're at and you decide what works for your life, what's really healthy and right to be in there. So, anyways, so we split also in the other direction, seeing people just as all good when that is not the truth. All right, that's it. Peace out. Hope it helps. Peace out. Here it is. Hope it helps.